what a game the 49ers threw down last night, Peter. They had the stage all to themselves, and because of that, they got the world of football talking. I mean, sure, the Cowboys were very impressive. The Eagles keep on winning, but it felt like last night was the first night the 49ers really hit the national radar.
Well, I think it was the first night that they played exactly the way Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and Jed York thought this team would play. When they were, when they were sort of trying to build a team that they thought could go further than last year. And of course, there was this temporary bump and speed bump when Trey Lance got hurt. But, I think we all said at the time, at least I did, I think you guys did too, that, yeah, it's bad that Trey Lance got hurt because, God, the guy has got to start playing. He's played so little college and pro football that he needs to start playing. But I think everybody realizes, honestly, that, when you look at this team the way it is right now, there's no way that you could imagine Trey Lance would be, 104 rating, 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 67% passer, 8.1 yards per attempt. It's this, unfortunately, because it basically just moved everything until next year. I think it's pretty clear that along with a really good defense, a suffocating defense at times, that it was really good for this team and this organization that Garoppolo's playing right now, because I think he'll do more this year than they would have gotten out of Trey Lance.
Does this do anything for the theory that people worry about and define teams by the quarterback way too much, and that the 49ers are, in fact, one of those teams that have a chance to be excellent without an excellent quarterback, that they have a good quarterback who, when he's good, he's incredibly efficient, but he's never going to be eye-popping? Is there a lesson in that, or do you think we'll ignore that the next time Trey Lance takes a practice field?
I mean, think about the quarterbacks who are having really good years who aren't eye-popping. The first one that comes to mind is Geno Smith. And I don't know what eye-popping means other than Patrick Mahomes at his best, Josh Allen many times in the last 2-3 years
Herbert
has been eye-popping. But I think I'd be much more interested on a quarterback who moves my team, doesn't turn it over, throws the ball very accurately. I mean, I was looking at this last night after the game. Think about this. Jimmy Garoppolo right now is 5 consecutive games completing more than 2/3 of his throws. Now that's special. And so when you're that good, when you're completing that percentage, he's at 67 for the year, when you're doing that well, and when you're also throwing the ball down the field a bit too, as he has, I don't know what more you want out of your quarterback. And the other thing to think about is how much of a difference really Christian McCaffrey has made in this offense, considering that, okay, so last night, I don't know, he ran 8 or 9 times.
7 catches, 14 touches, 7 catches, 7 runs.
Yeah, I mean, this is what you want out of a multi-purpose back. And when he's healthy, he is one of the 2 or 3 best multi-purpose backs in football because he's so good at route running. He's got great hands, and he makes something happen with the ball every time he catches it. So, I mean, his impact on this offense cannot be minimized. And look, even though Deebo Samuel hasn't been a house afire since he came back, from after missing that game against the Rams. It's still what he does in a game is he forces the defense to pay a lot of attention so that whether it be George Kittle, McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, somebody is going to benefit from that. So, look, in the past, we've always said this is what the 49ers can be. We saw it last night, on a real choppy field in Mexico City, but we saw what they could be at their best. And what usually happens is pick a name. Deebo, Kittle, somebody gets hurt. And that's really, and it's impossible to say, well, they got to stay healthy. They got to do whatever they can to stay healthy. That's just not something you can really account for. But I do think now you've got 3 straight home games, a very physical New Orleans defense, then obviously Miami and another physical defense in Tampa Bay. And, now is the time. I think, look, the 49ers have to win, absolute minimum, 2 of these 3. And you add in the Seattle game, if they win 3 out of 4, they're winning the division. They're already 4-0 in division games. So it's very likely they're going to win a tiebreaker in the division, especially closing with Arizona at home. So they put themselves in really good position last night. And mentally, this team has to be feeling really good about itself, having played that well in the last 3 games.
Peter King here on 95.7 The Game. Yeah, the Niners are 4-0 in the NFC West for the first time in 20 years. I want to go back to Christian McCaffrey with you, though, for just a second, because when the 49ers made the trade, I thought, what he really represents is a skeleton key to unlock the playbook, to unlock who you're covering, and just make the Niners run more efficiently. Beyond that, whenever you see a player who was on another team, for the most part, you only get to see the highlight package, the big scoring plays. Where Christian McCaffrey is just phenomenal, Peter, is on first and second down. The things that don't get you the highlight reel, but that's a 6 yards keeping you on schedule. That guy's shoulders are forever pointed upfield, and it feels like he is constantly falling forward and usually across the first down line. It's like he feels them out there. He's got an incredible touch for just north-south football. He doesn't waste any steps.
Yeah. I remember when McCaffrey was coming out of Stanford, his coach there, David Shaw, said one of the great things about Christian is that there are very, very few negative plays. He always finds a way to burrow when something should be a 2-yard gain. He burrows for 3 more. And look, I think I'm going to be close. I think he's like, without being spectacular yet, he's contributing 98 yards a game of offense. And he's done that just getting to know the playbook. And to me, obviously the Rams game is a signature game. But all these other games, look, I look at last night's game. And the reason why I think last night's game really had a big fingerprint of Christian McCaffrey on it is that a couple of those replays, you saw whether you might call him a spy or whether you just say that you could tell on the replay that the Cardinals were really monitoring him at the snap of the ball. Play action takes on a whole nother meaning with Christian McCaffrey. And so just the threat of him there really opens so much up, I think, for, the other weapons in this offense.
Would you anticipate that teams will continue to center their attentions on him? Or do you see the 49er offense as diversified enough that teams might have to stop doing that just to save themselves from getting killed in other places?
That's going to be a great question. I mean, Ray, you know what is really, really interesting about what we've seen so far in the, McCaffrey, Kittle, Deebo, 49ers. This is just something that I was thinking about last night. Okay, so in the two games since Deebo came back after the Rams game, in those two games, he essentially has been a good player, but not an incredible impact player. Okay, when you think about it, I think he's had maybe in those two games, I don't know, I'm just going to guess, 150 yards maybe total. And what that says to me is that, look, the threat of Deebo Samuel is enough, but at some point, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to hit a home run with Deebo Samuel. And the way that, this is just my feeling, but the way we have seen Tony Pollard explode for the Dallas Cowboys, and last week Pollard had the first 100-yard receiving game of his career. I mean, look, Deebo Samuel has had a nice year, but he hasn't had the year he had last year. And he's only had, I think, one 100-yard receiving game. But I just think right now, when I look at Deebo Samuel, we're heading into the last, 6 or 7 games of the year. And I look at this and say, this guy is primed now with the depth of the weaponry on this offense. At some point, Deebo Samuel is going to take over a game and have 180 yards rushing, receiving, and, have a player of the week type of game. Hasn't had one yet, but it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, it does feel like it's coming. And we were saying yesterday, as we were sort of doing pregame ahead of Monday Night Football, Peter, that, he needed to impact a game, not just participate in it. And last night, his longest touchdown run of his career, he was targeted. He was he was good in the passing game last night. He helped and took advantage of opening things up. And the big explosion that you're talking about hopefully does indeed come soon. I thought it was just a spectacular night for Mexico City as a venue, as an atmosphere, and as maybe a location of a future NFL team. I mean, there's so much talk about international expansion. Forget about crossing an ocean. Right there. There you go. My goodness.
Yeah. I mean, Mexico City absolutely unequivocally could support a team. I think the way I look at Mexico City is that the NFL knows that it's there. I'm not saying the NFL takes it for granted. I don't think it does. But the NFL knows it's there, and the NFL is poking and prodding and exploring a lot of other markets to see what else is there. And look, you talk about the possibility of a team in Mexico City. I mean, I when I was in Munich a couple of weeks ago, I got the distinct exclamation point expression that there's no plans in the almost the distant future. There's no plans to expand. Okay, they love 32 teams. It's easy to schedule. Everything is good with 32 teams. Plus, do you think these owners right now want to divide the pie into 36 pieces or into 32? And they don't want to give up more of their money. They're happy with the way it is right now. And
you'd think that any expansion would come with like a $5 billion entry fee, though, right?
Well, I mean, a $5 billion entry fee. I mean, that's how possibly could that be profitable for a city or for an owner? I don't know. Look, I don't know what's going to happen. But all I'm saying is that the NFL right now has zero appetite to expand. Zero. And, as of now, if you look at every team in football, what team right now is willing to A, be sold, B, move? The only team that I could even think that you might even entertain it is Jacksonville. And Shad Khan has put so much money into that facility. He's building a huge new practice facility right now. I cannot imagine, even though Jacksonville hasn't been the greatest market, I can't imagine him moving anytime soon. So I understand. I think Mexico City did a fabulous job last night. But I don't know, where's the team coming from? If I were Mexico City, what I would be pushing for, I think next year they're going to be doing a lot of refurbishment on the stadium there to get ready for the World Cup games in 26. I think what's happening is that the World Cup is going to be a North American World Cup in 26, Mexico, U.S., and Canada. So I think they're fixing up their stadium some, so they'll miss it next year. But if I'm Mexico City, you've got 8 teams in the NFL who've entered into marketing agreements like Arizona, like San Francisco, and want to do business in Mexico. If I were them, I'd be saying, hey, listen, you're going to give Germany 2 games next year, which I feel confident the NFL is going to do, that New England and Kansas City both will host games in Germany next year. I'd be saying to the NFL, hey, you should give us 2 games a year. You've got all these teams all over the NFL who want to do business in Mexico. Give us 2 games a year. And realistically, right now, I think that's the best Mexico can hope for.
You talked about Mexico. You talked about the 49ers. But the 3-legged elephant in the room is the Arizona Cardinals, who look like they are decomposing before our eyes. Is there any indication that for as much money as they've invested in Kyler Murray, that the fact that it seems like they're kind of lukewarm on him even now suggests that either there's going to be front office upheaval in the offseason or Kyler Murray gets moved somewhere?
Well, Ray, it's a good question because I'm doing something in my column next week about the Cardinals. Now, get this. The Cardinals at the 12-game mark last year, early December, were 10-2, and they were the top seed in the NFC. Since then, they're 5-11, and if they lose to the Chargers, they'd be 5-12 over the equivalent of a full NFL 17-game season. And so, obviously, we know there's a problem, and there's a major problem. But here's the other issue. They've given long-term contracts worth what I figure has to be in the neighborhood of $300 million to Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury, and the GM, Steve Keim. So, okay, maybe, I don't know. First of all, if you could move Kyler Murray, I don't really know the cap ramifications, but they would be major, okay? If you could move him, you got to find a quarterback, and you've got to get a quarterback who, right now, with DeAndre Hopkins soon going into the twilight, and not a really great weapon beyond him, unless you think Hollywood Brown is great, and I don't. To me, this team, this is a franchise adrift. It really is. And, last night was just a perfect example of that. The Arizona Cardinals want to be one of those teams that becomes Mexico's team. Shoot, they got a huge border on the country. And last night, trying to put their best foot forward in this new market country, they lose by 28 points. And so to me, I I don't know where the upside for the Cardinals is. I think they precipitously gave away all this money to Kingsbury, Kime, and Murray after slumping badly down the stretch and getting embarrassed in the playoffs by the Rams. They're paying for that now. It's almost like the Russell Wilson contract in Denver. It's funny to hear the people in Denver say, "Oh, we don't regret that contract." I mean, that's the biggest lie in football. Of course they regret the contract. And I'm sure that Michael Bidwill in Arizona regrets all three contracts, because that's a franchise in big trouble.
Peter King with us. All we can do is say thank you for joining us for another incredibly long conversation. We call you thinking we'll talk to you for about 15 minutes, and then we do like a full 3-hour-long podcast, for goodness sakes. Thank you as always, and a very, very happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. Really appreciate your time with us as always.
Thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate it.